Yo, 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 welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining me. This is, glad you're here. Got a lot to talk about today. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got Trump busting balls at the World Economic Forum. That's a lot of fun. I just got back from Costa Rica about a week ago, and it was pretty interesting. We were talking to our tour guide there, and he's a local. He grew up, has lived his whole life there, and we're talking to him. We're asking him, okay, what's your opinion about Trump? This shortly after Maduro was arrested, and we were asking him. We're like, you know, Jose, what do you think of Trump? What do people in Costa Rica think about Trump? What's kind of the general feeling? And he was without hesitation. He was like, "We love Trump. We love Trump. We love him." They think he's fantastic, and they love that he took out Maduro because they've had lots of problems with drugs coming up through their country from Venezuela towards the United States, and there's just been lots of violence and trafficking and all kinds of disruption that the Costa Ricans aren't really involved in. It's outsiders and cartels who are moving stuff up through there. So he sees this as being making that he said we see Trump as bringing order back to the world. And so very lots of support there. And I've you hear about these things, so it was interesting to hear it firsthand from somebody in Latin America. You hear there's a lot of support for Trump there, and then you see the Venezuelans celebrating in the streets. You see all the support there. You see the Argentinians who are celebrating there, the Chileans. There's kind of a movement going on right now in Central and South America that's throwing off the shackles of socialism, and Trump is helping them to do that. These things have already kind of been in motion, and it's just kind of like the last push. And they've lived with socialism for so long, and they've been oppressed by it for so long that they know how evil and corrupt and damaging and destructive and how oppressive socialism is. And so now they're happily throwing it off the chains and looking forward to a world in which they can live in freedom and liberty and economic prosperity. So this is kind of what's going on, and Trump is reshaping the world to where it's us, the Americas, united as one against the globalists, essentially against Europe, unfortunately, against China, against Russia. So we have lots of support in Central and South America for America. There's people who actually like us there, like us more than a lot of our own citizens, and they're just very positive and optimistic that brighter days are to come. So thought I'd let you guys know that. Hey, thanks for joining me, everybody. If you want, you can comment. I would appreciate that. I'll be trying to read the comments as best I can. If you got something you want to ask me or a comment you want to make, just go ahead and put it in there on YouTube, and I'll try to look at it as best I can. Also, if you would like and subscribe the video, that way you get alerted to the next time I'm live or when I post new videos. And more importantly, share and comment on the videos. That would be fantastic. So there's today we'll be talking about a couple different things. Trump at the World Economic Forum, obviously, not just him, but also Besant and some other people from the Trump administration who were there. Also, we've got Alex Soros was there, and his bitch Gavin Newsom. And so we'll be talking about that. Also, Jack Smith has been hauled in front of Congress, and they're really grilling him. So we'll kind of talk about a little bit of that. And, the World Economic Forum really is a very interesting, it's kind of where all these forces are coming to a head. All right. You've got the global elites, the rich global elites who think that who have been in control of the world and telling the world what to do and telling countries what to do and all these kinds of things for quite some time now. They've been in power and they've been happy to do so. Their power is starting to wane, and Trump is the one who's making it wane faster than it even was, and to where the globalists are getting shook. This whole global world order that was developed after World War II to where we would intertwine all of our countries in trade, and that would prevent us from going to war against one another. Now, it makes sense. Okay. This actually seems like a pretty decent idea, right? The idea was that World War II was so horrific, was so destructive, was just on a scale that was so unimaginable, the destruction that happened. And then at the end, we drop a nuclear weapon on a country, and now we've got nuclear weapons in all these other countries. Like the main fear and the impetus behind all of this was we have to prevent this from ever happening again, right? And that's not even mentioning the Holocaust and those kinds of things that were also in there, but just as far as the sheer destruction of the countries involved, Japan completely wiped out, all Europe completely wiped out, all this cost and all this bloodshed and all this destruction, it's a good thing to want to try and prevent that from happening again. Who wants that to happen? That's horrendous. So the Bretton Woods and the powers that be got together, and they tried to come up with a new system for the world. And what they kind of created was a non nationalist system that was instead a globalist system, right? So we pull in everybody from all the countries, get all the countries to start trading with one another, to making alliances with one another, to start weaving together our lives and our countries into each other. So therefore, that would disincentivize us to want to go to war with anyone. So you get China and America to weave their economies together. Now, China attacks America, it's bad for China. If America attacks China, it's bad for America because we have all kinds of interests there that are going to get destroyed, and we're going to suffer as a result. So make trade agreements, tie our economics to one another, get a global exchange of currency so that we're all using the same one. So if anyone tries to destroy it, we all suffer, so no one will want to. Things like that, right? Makes sense. And it's worked pretty well, for 80 years. There hasn't been an extremely devastating war like World War II again. So in that sense, yeah, I would say they were pretty successful. There are a lot of disincentives for wanting to go to war because it will affect some area of the economy somewhere. So not only that, but because the European powers were so weakened, they basically put the Americans in charge of the globe. So America was now the global policeman who was supposed to ensure that everyone had access to the markets, that everyone was protected. So as we were in charge of the shipping lanes and military power and all this kind of stuff. So for example, if you're going to ship something from China to America, you have to make sure that so that we can intertwine our economics, you have to make sure that those ships are protected so that we can increase the economic exchange between the two of us. If you're going to send a ship from China to South America, you're going to have to make sure that those boats are safe and that there's not pirates out there, there's not other countries who are just going to steal the shit. Okay, so the United States Navy got put in charge of it, securing all the shipping lanes and making sure that free trade was safe and was accessible. Okay. So this makes a lot of sense. If you're trying to intertwine everybody's economics, you have to make sure that Argentina can get stuff from China and China can get stuff from Iran and Iran can get stuff from Russia. You have to make sure that the whole globe can exchange goods. Now, one of the problems they run into is that what at that time, in the 40s and 50s, what's America going to buy from China? Like, what does China have to offer America in order for us to tie our economies together in order to reduce the likelihood of trade? Or what is Europe going to buy from China? They don't have anything, right? So the thing we bought from China was labor. Okay, that was the commodity that they had to sell us. They had cheap labor. So we will send US dollars over to China so that they can now be using the world currency of dollars, and they're going to get them by supplying us with labor. So we're going to ship the factories. We're going to have them be the manufacturing base. So not only can the wealthy industrialists get even wealthier because they've cut their labor costs, but their product is still the same price. But also then we're sending dollars over there to them so that they can, in exchange, can send their dollars back to us and buy things from us. Okay, so then as we build the factory base and as we start exchanging goods, we become intertwined, and we make sure that we don't it disincentivizes us from wanting to take one another over. And so we spread this all across the globe, and one of the key parts of it was that you couldn't be too nationalistic in your own country. Okay, you had to be open to the rest of the world. You had to have open borders and open minds, and you needed to let people come in and out of your country from other countries so that you could essentially, learn what they're like, so that it makes it less likely that you would want to harm them or harm their country. So we needed all this overlapping of people. We needed people traveling to and from different countries so that they can learn their cultures. And we needed the whole globe to be as one. And the more we come into contact with each other, the less strange we seem to one another. And the more we see ourselves as global citizens, not just citizens of our tiny little particular place on the planet that we'll fight for and that we believe is the best and that we will go to war for and all that kind of stuff. But we see ourselves as part of the global humanity. Not necessarily as Americans or Germans or English or Chinese or any of that kind of stuff, but as human beings on planet Earth. And the idea was that this would bring about peace and economic prosperity, because now you were opening up markets to billions more people, from the West over to Africa, Asia, so economic boom for everybody. And that did happen. China got wildly successful and wildly wealthy off of the backs of American manufacturing. So this worked for a long time. The problem now that we're seeing, and why this is important, is because of the World Economic Forum. The problem is that this consensus is starting to break down. The people have figured out how to sort of game the system, right? So in Europe, you're getting far too many immigrants coming into the countries, and it's starting to erode any sense of national identity whatsoever. And that's essentially the part of the globalist idea. They feel like it's a real threat because the Germans, because they identified as Germans and they wanted to create this national identity, right? And they were all on the same page, and they had this brotherhood or whatever you want to call it. And it was so us versus them. That's the thing that the globalists want destroyed, because they see that as being the most dangerous thing you could do. That's the thing that caused the most destruction that the world has ever seen in a short period of time. So you don't want people to identify too closely with their group, or you don't want the majority. Honestly, what it is you don't want the majority in a country to identify too much with each other and to identify too much with their boundaries, with their country. So there's been this constant attempt to undermine any of that kind of thinking and call people nationalists. And if they care about their country before they care about somebody else's country, then they're Hitlerian, they're Nazi, they're bad, they're totalitarians, they're fascists, because it's such a threat in the globalist mind, such a threat to care about your country that deeply that you would want to kick everybody who's not from your country out, that you'd want to build walls around your country to keep people out, that you would want to isolate yourself, and that you would just want to focus on yourself. That is a dangerous mentality in the mind of the globalists. They want you to be open to everybody. They want you to be open to the world. They want you to be open to the minorities and the stranger and all that kind of stuff, because they see that as reducing potential for war. All right. So now what's happening in the US, for example, is that you're getting a new generation of people who feel like the globalist agenda is not working for them, that it's gone too far, that it has outsourced their opportunities, that it's outsourced their future for the sake of the global community, that their countries are supposed to be there for them, and their countries are supposed to be the ones that take care of them and give them the opportunities they need so that they can live a good life and have a family and a house and a successful life. The global community doesn't care about that, but your country should care about that. And so it doesn't make any sense for us to spend a bunch of money on these other countries when we have people suffering on our own. It doesn't make sense for us to send money overseas or to fund things or to fund wars in other countries to defend other people when you have people here who need our work. So we need to forget about the broader outside world that doesn't really affect us, because we don't care about necessarily reducing the likelihood of another World War II, because that was long ago, and we're focused on current times in my life and what's going on in my time. And so this is what the globalists really dislike, this kind of a thought, because this to them sounds like a hearkening back to the 40s, a hearkening back to before the globalist agenda was put into place, when destruction and chaos reigned rained down across Europe, which eventually led to the slaughter and Holocaust. Okay. So not only that, but because of the close group identity of the German people and the way in which they saw the outsider or the person who didn't fit, they then oppressed that person. So you get the idea that majorities are always oppressors of minorities, right? So if we support the minorities and we undermine the majorities, then we can prevent another thing like a Holocaust, where majorities get out of hand and they take it out on the people who don't have the power, and they kill them, murder them, kick them out, do kinds of bad things, oppress them, and all that kind of stuff. So when they start seeing people in the US who have a similar identity, have a similar mindset, have a similar dedication to their country, for like Christian nationalists or whatever, they get really nervous about that, and they want to undermine it at any chance they can. And they see Trump coming over here to the World Economic Forum, and it scares them, right? They're scared. They think that Trump is encouraging this kind of mentality. They think that he's sort of flaming the fires of nationalism that will then end up being this brutal, evil, destructive force again, like we have been trying to prevent this whole time. This is why they fight so much against all of these things, why they fight immigration, why they fight border wall, why they fight new economic agreements with different countries instead of the ones we had, where Europe gets all worked up over America first type stuff, and anybody who says England is for the English and you should close your borders to outsiders, they can't, because in their philosophy, closing the borders and kicking people out and just focusing on your citizens and yourselves is hearkening back to World War II. And the only thing that can come from that is death and destruction and carnage. This is, I think, how the philosophy goes. So it makes sense that when Trump comes over and says, you know what, we're done, or who was it? Rudnick, I think. No, I can't remember who it was. Anyway, somebody from the Trump administration said the global world order, the globalist agenda, it's done. A scary idea to people who were instrumental in building this whole thing and creating it and sustaining it and thinking that they were protecting the world. They were keeping the world a peaceful place. To say it's dead is then what? Replaced with what? Everybody being hyper nationalist and then just fighting against each other and going to war against one another and things like that. So we will get into that. I guess on that note, let's take a look here at some of the things that were said. Here it is. Howard Lutnick.
Okay. We are in Davos at the World Economic.
Let's take a look here, see what he's got to say.
Okay. We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies. Okay? And so that is a different way of thinking. It is completely different than the WEF. I viewed the WEF as not a flagpole in the middle, but in fact, they are the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so it blew. You should have solar, you should have wind. Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries.
Okay. Yeah. So you see, this is kind of the difference here. There's some nuance to it, but the idea is for the globalist agenda is like, what's the problem with having China? We're in this together. We as a globe need to be about climate change. Okay, so if we can get on board with that, we can bring China in so that they're concerned about it by making the batteries for Europe, right? So now they're tied together with Europe, and they have a vested interest in climate change and for the globe, right? So you can see kind of, but with Rutnick's doing here is he's saying, this is a bad idea. This is going to be bad for your countries because now you're dependent on somebody who doesn't like you, somebody who's your enemy. And the global agenda was, yeah, that's the point. That's the point. You tie together enemies economically. And now they have to get along. And even if they still don't like each other, they still won't attack each other because they depend on one another for economic purposes. It's pretty smart, actually. And Rutnick's saying that this kind of fucked over the American workers, right? Because we hollowed out our industrial base to ship it over to China so that they could be part of the global system. And we left our workers with nothing. So the Rust Belt becomes drug-infested, broken down area with people with no purpose who live terrible lives when they used to have thriving industries and thriving factories. So it was a purposeful destruction of the manufacturing base in the U.S. for a greater good, for the benefit of bringing the whole world together in economic reliance on one another. And so they don't like to hear this kind of stuff. And he's saying, listen, you should be taking care of yourselves. You should be your country first. You should be able to be self-reliant. Now, obviously, everybody's not going to be self-reliant, not going to be able to make every single thing you need as a country. But for those things that you can't make, it better be your friends who are making the things, so they can't pull the rug out from underneath you and undermine you and fuck you over to make you weak and then attack you. And so this is where we're at. This is the new order that's coming, and it's coming more rapidly than people realize. And it's not going to stop. It has too much momentum, not only in the United States, where it's gaining momentum every single day, and it's getting harder and harder to make the case for why we should be a global empire policing the world and going bankrupt doing it, as we've got people defrauding us, and a lot of the fraudsters have figured out a way to game the system. So now the system needs to be destroyed because it's gotten corrupt. Not only in the U.S. is this happening, but you're seeing the same thing in Argentina, for example, Chile, for example, but also Europe. Seeing a large groundswell in England. You're seeing it happen in France. You're seeing it happen in Germany, mostly East Germany, where it's AfD party is like the whole East Germany. Because the thing is, the people who were socialist and under the tyranny of communism, socialism, they get it. They want economic freedom. They want to make their own decisions. They don't want the global elites telling them what they can and can't do. They want to make their own decisions. They want to be free to trade and build and do their own thing. They don't want to be oppressed from the outside anymore. And you get a lot of these populist grassroots movements, and a lot of it is this is what it's about. The EU has so oppressed the countries, and the UN has outlived its usefulness, that it's time for a new global order. And this is really shaking things up. So not only, let's see, what else we got here? Oh, Besant, that was, okay, so here's Trump. This is just one of the many things. I mean, he talked for, I don't know, an hour or something like that. And so you can kind of see these alliances are breaking down. Trump's challenging a lot of the alliances. He's trying to reimagine the way that the world is structured, and he's just the harbinger of things to come. Trump's not really doing these things. The populist movements are doing these things. The people are doing these things. There's a large desire for these things from the people.
Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your prime minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
You know, and it is true. You know, the United States is and has been for a long time the one who makes sure that everything that trade agreements are possible between countries in a lot of ways, really. America is the defender of Canada and has been for a long time. Now, Canada has sort of gotten out over its skis here to where they think that they have a lot more power and negotiation ability than they really do. And even here in Switzerland with the Europeans, like, the Europeans think they have a lot more to negotiate with than they really do. And Trump is the first president in a long time to realize, listen, I have all the power. That's just a fact. Trump and the United States have all the power. We have all the cards. We can dictate what we want from you and the terms of what we want. What's Europe going to do? They're weak. What's the UN? No, they don't have militaries. They don't have any economic firepower. They don't have anything. They've got nothing to offer back. And so Trump basically is saying, this is what I'm going to do and this is what I want. And you better give me Greenland. And then they're just going to be like, okay, what are they going to do? They don't have anything to offer. What does Europe have to offer to the United States other than regulations and a bunch of, hand-wringing and moralizing? They don't have anything to offer. Now there are our heritage, and you know we have a strong bond with them, so that's basically all they have to offer. But so Trump's no nonsense. He's not buying this bullshit that we need to be deferential to Europe and the EU and the UN and all these kinds of things. Things that like the UN, the WE fund, basically NATO. That's basically just us. As the major force. Like, it's time to renegotiate all of these agreements, these unspoken agreements and the formal agreements. And Trump knows that, and everybody knows it. Even the European leaders know it. Canada knows it. They know they've gotten it good. They've gotten away good for a long time, that they haven't had to pull their weight for a long time, that the United States has been overly generous for a long time, and now it's time to renegotiate. Now, as world leaders do, they're going to have to act tough, and they're going to have to act like they're standing up to Trump because they need their people to trust them and believe in them and all that kind of stuff. But there's really nothing they can do. Like, you have to have America on your side. You just have to. I mean, there's just no other option. And even if you want to claim you can go make an agreement with China, China's nothing. China, in 50 years, China's dead. They are not as powerful as their distorted facts, their distorted stats say. They don't even have a Navy ship that can reach the United States. They're so weak militarily. The United States has a larger military than the rest of the world. I mean, the amount of warfare, the amount of boats that we have, the amount of Air Force that we have, it's just not even close. So, and that doesn't mean that we're going to use that for any nefarious purposes. It just means there needs to be a recognition that the United States you need the United States in order for this whole thing to continue. So I thought this was funny. Besant's making fun of Gavin Newsom. So let's look at this real quick.
I think it's very ironic that Governor Newsom, who strikes me as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken, may be the only Californian who knows less about economics than Kamala Harris. He's here this week with his billionaire sugar daddy, Alex Soros.
Yeah.
And the Davos is a perfect place for a man who, when everyone else was on lockdown, when he was having people arrested for going to church, he was having $1,000 a night meals at the French Laundry. And I'm sure the California people won't forget that. And I can tell my message to Governor Newsom is the Trump administration is coming to California. We are going to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse. And I was told he was asked to give a speech on his signature policies, but he's not speaking, because what have his economic policies brought? Outward migration from California, a gigantic budget deficit, the largest homeless population in America, and the poor folks in the Palisades who had their homes burned down. He is here hobnobbing with the global elite while his California citizens are still homeless. Shame on him. He is too smug, too self-absorbed, and too economically illiterate to know anything.
Yeah, between him and Kamala Harris, which one would be more economically illiterate? Gosh, that would be a really tough race. I would say probably Newsom. I mean, he's just done such a terrible job. Like, wow, the fraud in California. I cannot wait until people start uncovering that, till Nick Shirley goes there and starts investigating some of this stuff, till people, it's going to be so crazy, huge, the amount of fraud that's gone on in California. Maybe they've been better at hiding it than Minnesota. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe they're a little more skilled because they've been doing it longer and they figured out how to hide the fraud better. But it's going to be massive. It's going to be massive. It's going to be massive. And a lot of it's going to have happened under Gavin Newsom. He has got maybe he's just that incompetent that he just can waste $100 billion like that because he just doesn't know what he's doing that much. Or probably more realistic that he's somehow involved in creating this structure and benefiting from it, and his friends benefiting, his campaign benefiting, things like that. Kamala's presidential campaign probably benefiting. I'm sure that if she would have got elected, California would have been doing pretty darn good with her as president. Been getting a lot of money funneled their way. So I'm excited to see what comes of all that. I think it's going to be fantastic. The California people deserve to know. So speaking of Alex Soros, this is George Soros's son. He's pals with Gavin Newsom, and is a bigwig, responsible for funding a lot of these fake protests that the left's been doing. And but you would think that this guy would be some kind of intellectual or something, but he just sounds really unintelligent. So you tell me if you think that this is an act he's putting on, if he really is unintelligent, or if he has to speak in a way to where he can't reveal his real motives and what's really going on, and so that's what makes him look so clunky and stupid.
I don't think that that's the fundamental. I don't think technology is the fundamental issue in democracy. Democracy is messy. I mean, democracy is about contestation of ideas. It's about plurality. It's about people having different truths. Actually, now, fundamentally, how society lives together civically in those contestations is obviously quite tricky. But I think that if we play too much on this disinformation card, we're taking responsibility away from ourselves to actually create a narrative that inspires people to vote and to believe in democracy and democratic institutions. And on the institutional part, I think that we can talk about institutions as these abstract things, but institutions are also about people. And we just heard this point about untrustworthy people, and we talked about things in the United States like checks and balances, which aren't written anywhere but are customs. And one man, Donald Trump, literally came in and just took that all away. But when I see this, when I look at this, more globally regarding democracy, I also say to myself, when was this great time that everybody got along so well and things were going so great? I mean, I think I think that we really have to be careful here in this nostalgia for a time past, because a lot of the reactions we're seeing in society are actually reactions to positive things like equality for women, and greater diversity.
I don't know if you can make sense out of that. You can let me know. But kind of hard to understand what he's talking about there. I feel like there's probably a deeper thing that he's trying to that he would really like to say, or that he really believes, but has to sort of moderate himself so that his words don't sound like a crazy commie socialist kind of guy. But this is the kind of the globalist type of idea, right? The things that he talks about is what's democracy is messy. Democracy is about clash of ideas, and the things that people are fighting against, who are acting like are terrible things that need to be abolished, are women's rights and diversity. That I don't see there being undermining of women's rights, unless you want to talk about abortion. But that's such a controversial topic. Like, that's the women's rights is way more than that one thing. Okay, so It's not like people are taking away the women's right to vote or anything like that. And then the diversity aspect. This is what I was saying earlier. Is this is sort of the dream of the global order, is that they want diversity everywhere because they think diversity reduces likelihood of homogeneity. And that's the problem with homogeneity, is that it's too concentrated, and it's a power. The power gets too concentrated and it gets too powerful when it's homogenous. Okay, so that's why, for example, they are very deliberately trying to undermine white men in the US, for example, and in Europe too, because they need to break apart that coalition, and they need to keep them from identifying with each other. All right, because if white men, Christian or whatever you want to say, if they all coalesce into one group and decide that they want to take on a common mission and take on a common enemy, and they want to take over the society, there's nothing that anyone can do, right? Like the power that they would have as a homogenized group is too much power, and it scares these kinds of globalists, because they think that that's the same thing that happened in Germany. Is these white men gathered together as a group, and then they just boom, the power was like a nuclear explosion. It just blew up across all of Europe, and there was nothing anybody could do to stop them, and it was just a terrible amount of concentrated power. And so they're trying their best to prevent that same power from being concentrated again. And that's why it looks like there's oppression and racism and bigotry and stuff against white men in the US in particular, because I think that they fear that power being concentrated in that group again. And with like Nick Fuentes, they see that kind of happening, right? So they want to fight that as much as possible. And they're really doubling down on diversity, equity, inclusion. We need a diversity of people in organizations and across the country. And we need to bring down the percentage of white male population because it's too dangerous, it's too powerful, and it's too scary. And I really think that that's a lot of what's driving a lot of that aspect of this. And so when they say diversity is one of the good things that people are fighting against, that's right. People are fighting against it. So the problem is that there are downsides to diversity, right? And there's been lots of studies put out about this. It's not all downside, obviously. There's upside to it as well. But like everything, there's good and bad to it. And one of the biggest detriments of diversity is a loss of trust amongst people. And it's plain as day. It's in all the data. It's in all the studies that have been done with this. It's like a rapid decrease in trust amongst the people. And that's a problem, because capitalism and the American way, how it's been able to be so successful, is that we could do business, we could trust each other, we could trust people, we could trust the institutions, we could trust our neighbors, we could trust was the main currency in which the United States was built. And the main currency in which capitalism is built, it has to be a high trust society, because you can do business extremely quickly if you live in a high trust society, and you can build and build and build and build and exchange and expect to get back what you receive, right? So now the thing is, with the Somalis, this is what it's showing us, is that this diversity thing isn't a 100% pure good thing, but it has its flaws. And one of them is trust. We can't trust the Somalis like we could trust the native Minnesotans. We can't trust them. So what are we going to do about that? How are we supposed to ensure that we can trust them? Do they even care that we can't trust them? Are they even interested in trust? All these questions come up. And so, like, to just paint diversity as if it doesn't have its own flaws and if it doesn't have its own problems is naive and dishonest. It does. Now, is the loss of trust something that's worse or better than the destruction of homogenous groups and the danger they pose? That's something that we're trying to figure out, right? These are difficult things to figure out, and that's what we're fighting over as a culture. Oh, I love this guy, Milei from Argentina. You know, it's refreshing to hear somebody from another country talk about freedom and democracy and capitalism in a way in which they like celebrate it and think it's a good thing. It's kind of funny because the countries that have those things it's been so frowned on and sort of dragged through the mud and capitalism and the countries that have capitalism are sort of like I wish we had socialism instead, and then the countries that had to suffer under socialism are like we want capitalism, we'll take it. What do you people are retards? What do you know? You don't even know how bad it is under socialism. But we got a bunch of white girls out on TikTok and out in the streets claiming we need socialism, we need socialism, we need communal housing in New York City. All the morons that Zohran Mamdani has working with him, Mamdani, they grow up in the lap of luxury. They're entitled, spoiled kids. And those are usually the ones who think socialism is be so great because we could, take care of everybody. But then you get somebody like Milei who comes from a country that had socialism and he's like, fuck that. You people have no idea what you're talking about. You're idiots. So listen to this guy talk about liberty.
For some time now, and for some strange reason, the West began to turn its back on the ideas of liberty.
Right.
That is why in this same place in 2024, I stated that the West was in danger as a result of having embraced increasing doses of socialism in its most hypocritical form, which is wokeism. In turn, in 2025, I explained the mental parasites sown by the left in humanity. However, 2026 is the year in which I bring you good news. The world has begun to awaken. The best proof of this is what is happening in the Americas with the rebirth of the ideas of liberty.
Woo. Wow, that's exciting. The world has awoken. The world has awoken. Liberty is coming back again.
Therefore, the
Definitely
Americas
in
will be
South
the beacon
America.
of light that will once again illuminate the entire West, thereby repaying the civilizational debt with expressions of gratitude towards the foundations in Greek philosophy, Roman law, and Judeo-Christian values. We have a better future ahead, but that better future exists only if we return to the roots of the West, which means returning to the ideas of liberty. May God bless the West. May the forces of heaven be with us. And long live freedom, damn it. Thank you very much.
This guy's a real firecracker, when he gets talking about socialism and he starts explaining it. He does such a good job of explaining how shitty of a system it is and how oppressive it is, and how much better capitalism and democracy are. And, it's similar to people who move here from Cuba. They love America, love it. And all the spoiled brat Americans who hate it and they're like, oh, America's oppressive. It's a blah, 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 whatever. These people look at them like they're complete retards because they're like, holy shit. What an entitled, spoiled attitude. You have no idea what the alternatives are and how bad they get. But not that you're ever going to convince these lunatic leftists who have never studied anything and, can't tell their ass from a hole in the ground. Let's see if I got anything else on World Economic Forum here. No, I don't think I do. Okay. So this has been going on this morning here. This is Jack Smith is hauled in front of Congress and they are grilling him and asking him questions. And he's really on the hot seat now. Let's see what nukes are going off with Jack Smith. Jim Jordan's opening statement just laid waste to the crook. Well worth the watch. Cut through the noise of the left and listen to the truth. So we're going to watch this. It's pretty long. It's 10 minutes. So let's
it was always about politics. And to get President Trump, they were willing to do just about anything. January 7th, 2023, Kevin McCarthy becomes Speaker of the House. 16 days later, Jack Smith issues a subpoena for his phone records. Phone records from 2 years prior for a 2-month time frame, Election Day 2020 to January 7th, 2021. Jack Smith and the Biden Justice Department get the phone records of the top Republican in government, the guy second in line to the president. They know who called him, when the call took place, and how long it lasted. You can pattern an individual's life. They know who the speaker talked to before big votes, who he talked to after big votes, when he calls his colleagues, when he calls his family. And to add insult to injury, they go to the judge with the subpoena for a gag order on the carrier. AT&T, don't tell your customer, the Speaker of the House, that you just gave his phone calls to Jack Smith and Joe Biden. And here's the kicker. They say to the court, we need this gag order because he's a flight risk. Someone might tamper with witnesses or with evidence. Are you kidding me? The Speaker of the House is going to run? They got my phone records for 2.5 years. Even the Democrats said this was wrong. But of course, we shouldn't be surprised. Democrats have been going after President Trump for 10 years, for a decade. And the country should never, ever forget what they did. Over the next few hours, we're going to hear a lot of yelling and screaming, I assume, from the other side. But we should never forget what took place, what they did to the guy, we the people, elected president twice. It all started in 2016 when they spied on his campaign. Clinton campaign hired the law firm Perkins Coie, who hired the public relations firm Fusion GPS, who hired a foreigner, Christopher Steele, to put together the fake dossier. Bunch of garbage in that document, but that was used by Jim Comey's FBI. And we all know Jim Comey. He was the guy who just last year was strolling along the beach when the good Lord had the waves wash up on shore, seashells in the formation of 8647. That guy took that dossier to the FISA court, lied to the court, and then spied on the other party's campaign. This, of course, led to the Mueller investigation, 2.5 years, 19 lawyers, 40 agents, $30 million to find nothing. No conspiracy, no coordination whatsoever. Then it was impeachment 1, anonymous whistleblower. We couldn't even know who was bringing the charge against the guy they were trying to take it, the guy we elected, who they're trying to kick out of office. We couldn't know. Secret hearings in the bunker, in the basement of the Capitol. Again, nothing. Then it was impeachment 2. No secret hearings here because they didn't have any hearings. It was the snap impeachment, and the Senate trial actually took place after President Trump wasn't in office. Then, of course, it was Alvin Bragg, who said before he got elected district attorney that there was no case here.
All right, that's pretty long. I don't think I want to watch that whole thing. That's pretty boring. He's just recounting the whole thing and, kind of giving the overview of what all happened, which is easy to find and sort of look up if you're interested in that anyway. It's a bunch of bullshit. And Democrats hopefully are finally being held responsible for all this attempt to undermine democracy. It's so funny because the Democrats are the ones who tried the most to undermine democracy as much as they could with the strongest force of will that any group of people have ever tried in the history of the United States. They're the ones who claim to be protecting democracy and standing up for democracy with this ICE stuff. They think Donald Trump is the one undermining democracy, while they tried for 5 years to literally undermine democracy. The president that the people elected, they tried to undermine him and prevent him from getting into power, and then tried to undermine him the whole time he was in power, tried to lock him up in prison. How much more undermining of democracy could you possibly get? And then they think it's because Trump's having Homan do the same exact policy as what Homan did under Obama to arrest illegal alien criminals, that undermining democracy. See, it's really stupid. The thing that the whole ICE raids, the illegal immigrants, the illegal criminal immigrants, all of that, what it's really all about has absolutely nothing to do with kindness or compassion towards other people. It's not about kindness or compassion or empathy towards illegals or immigrants in general or criminals or any of that. That's all a smoke screen. And if you believe that, you're one of the sheep. Everything about the ICE raids, everything about the protests that are standing up against it, everything that Jacob Frey is doing, everything that Tim Walz did, everything, all this fake, posturing and bullshit that these people are doing has absolutely nothing to do with care and concern for the illegals. Nothing to do with it. It has to do with one thing and one thing only, and it's very, very, very simple, and it's very, very, very clear. It has to do with Democrat power. That's it. That's the reason the illegals are here in the first place. It's the reason that they want to keep them here, because the Democrats don't want to lose their power. They used them to gain power. And now Trump kicking them out, and it's why Trump's kicking them out as well, is about Democrat power. Trump's reducing their power. They don't like it, so they're fighting like hell so that they can retain their power. That's it. That's it. That's it. If you think for 1 second that this Jacob Frey guy gives a shit about illegal immigrants, if they weren't helping the Democrats gain power, then you live in Crazyville. This is simply about power over our country, power over other people, and retaining the power for the Democrats in these cities and states. Because if they can keep these illegals in their areas, they will get counted in the census. They get counted in the census. As crazy as that is, even if they're criminals, they get counted in the census. So it's in their best interest to retain their power, the Democrat best interest, in order to retain their power to keep all of these immigrants in their areas. This is why they closed the prisons, so Trump can't go in there, get the illegal criminals out of the prisons and deport them. And so you think, well, that's crazy. Why wouldn't you let them take well, because they need them to stay there so that they can get counted in the census. So then when they use the census to apportion congressional seats, and they get a disproportionate amount more, because they have these illegal criminals and illegal immigrants in their areas. That's just what the whole thing is about. It's all it's ever been about. It's not about jobs. It's not about compassion. It's not about our neighbors. It's not about our friends. It's not about anything like that. Okay? It's all just about Democrats keeping power. And they're boo-hoo, whining and crying because they're seeing Trump slowly take that power away from them. He's taking it piece by piece by piece by piece. And they're losing their minds over it. And the story that they tell their foot soldiers is that, we have to stand up for these people, and Trump's Hitler and Trump's Nazi, and this is fascism, and these are our friends, and how dare you? It's just you're arresting brown people for no reason, just randomly off the streets and all that. That whole narrative is simply to get the sheep, the Democrat sheep, out into the streets, raising a ruckus, trying to use them as human shields and fodder, and throwing them out there to do whatever they can to try to stop it, because they've got no legal grounds to stop it. They have no military grounds. They've got no police force. They have no way to stop it because Trump's using federal authority, and it's all legal. And the only other option they have is don't let him into the prisons and send our cronies and all of our brainwashed white liberal ladies out there to throw fits in public, to block people, to just make it difficult for them to try to alert illegals so that they can flee. And of course, they're going to couch it in the language of compassion, because you're not going to get anybody to show up to a protest if you're like, this is about me maintaining power over people. This is about democratic power so that we can stay in charge of everything. Well, that's not a very compelling reason. The truth in this case is not a very compelling. But if you get people's emotions whipped up, and because they're leftists, they're already overly emotional, because they've been been primed and they've been groomed for these moments for years and years and years, for at least 10 years. So it's not that hard to just say, oh no, Trump's being a meanie. Trump's being meanie again. He's being Hitler again. You better go out there and you better stop Hitler. And then they just like good little stormtroopers. They march right out there. They block. They break the law constantly, impeding law enforcement. And and from the Democratic point of view, if a couple people get killed in the process, but they get to maintain their power, then it's worth it. It's worth it to them if some innocent people die for them to stay in power. And that's what where the immigrants come in useful. On the other hand, they give these illegals a bunch of money. In Minnesota's case, they give the Somali community a bunch of money to run these fake daycares and fake transportation companies. They never investigate it. They don't ask questions. I don't want to know. Just make sure that some of that money ends back up in the Democratic Party, and we'll give you more money. But you make sure that you give us kickbacks and put it into our campaign funds, so then we can stay in power perpetually. And that's how the scam is run. That's all that this is about. Don't be fooled. Okay? Don't let these shysters fool you that somehow this is about care and love and compassion and Christianity and what would Jesus do and all that kind of stuff. That's all just bullshit. And you don't have to listen to any of it. It's just trying to manipulate you. Just see it for what it is. So here's Mayor Jacob Frey. He supports defunding law enforcement and suggests that money should go to affordable housing. Well, okay, let's see.
There are calls to defund ICE. How do you feel about that?
Well, what I've heard is abolish ICE. I mean, let's be real. The amount of money that has been dumped into ICE over the last year has been ridiculous. And so, I mean, gosh, we could use a lot of that money to hire police officers, which we very much need. We could use that money to put up affordable housing.
But do you believe that there should be ICE?
So I think a lot of people are talking by one another on this. Here's what I think. ICE needs bottom to top transformation.
There are calls.
I love how the guy who is in the city that has just been exposed for having billions of dollars of fraud is lecturing anybody on how money could be used wisely. Oh, ICE, too much money is being spent on ICE. You know what we could do with that money is you guys could give it to me, and then I could smuggle it to the Somalis and then back into my campaign. That would be. Oh wait, no. I mean, no. I mean, affordable housing. Yeah, affordable housing. We could build like a lot of affordable housing. Yeah, we could use that money. But yeah, what we'll do is we'll start a Somali affordable housing coalition, and we'll have them build the affordable housing for us. That'll work out great. This guy has no business talking about how money should be used. This guy is a shyster. This guy's a fraud. He's a sham. He needs to be in prison along with Walz and Ellison. They all knew what was going on. They're all involved in this whole Democrat scam to stay in power and to boost Democrat power. That was, I mean, this idea must have been hatched, I don't know, around 2021 or something, because the Democrats used to be pro-ICE. They used to talk about it all the time. Obama gave Homan a medal for his outstanding job of deporting illegals. And then all of a sudden, Biden gets in there. They open the borders, and now they're anti-ICE. It's because they weren't running the scam before, and then they figured this out. Somebody inside the administration figured out, hey, if we bring in a bunch of illegals, they get counted in the census. It proportions more power to us. So let's make these sanctuary cities so we can put illegals in them, and we'll have Biden open the border so all the illegals come to our cities, so that it boosts our numbers, so that we get apportioned more political power. And then we'll give them money, we'll give them things, and they can put that money back into our campaigns so we can have more money so that we can stay in power perpetually. It's easy to understand once you see it. Once you see the scam, you can't unsee it. And all this stuff that they're trying to distract you with ICE tackling people and people going into churches and ladies, getting all overly emotional, talking about how kind we need to be to these are our neighbors and all that kind of stuff. That's all smokescreen BS for the masses to cover up and hide what the real purpose of all this stuff is. Okay. Minneapolis has plenty of money. They could build affordable housing if they want. So I don't know why they're not doing it anyway. Okay, I thought this was interesting. This is, take it with a grain of salt. It's by the Daily Wire, but it's an interesting article that women are more likely to support political assassinations. That's pretty disturbing. It's, I don't know. The more that I see these crazy leftist lunatic women out on the street, the more that I'm not surprised that this would be the case, because they just seem completely out of touch with like consequences for their aggressive behavior. I think maybe the reason for this is that guys are more familiar with violence, and so they try to say like, whoa, violence is very bad. I've been exposed to it. I know about it because men are more violent, and so we're just more familiar with the whole thing, and women are kind of naive to it, and they're just like, well, if it accomplishes the mission, I guess violence, without any of the real life understanding of how dangerous violence is. I don't know. That's my theory. But let's look at the numbers. So what it comes out to is they did a chart where the percent of people who give some or more justification for murder by gender. So it's like, how justified would like political assassination be of Mamdani or Trump? Okay, so the females in both cases are higher than the males. Almost 10 points higher on Mamdani do women think that it would be justified, and about 7.5 points on Trump. Females are higher. So for Mamdani, the females 54.7%, the men 45.2%. On Trump, the females 57.5%, and the men 50%. So the women are a lot more likely to think that it's okay, and why that's the case, I'm not really sure, but it's especially leftist women. That's why the Mamdani case is especially odd, because you would think a lot of them would be in favor of him and wouldn't want that. But when they just go by who would be in favor of murdering Trump, for example, left of center women, 67% of them would be in favor of that. And on Mamdani's side, it's only 40% of left of center women. It's pretty much centrist and right of center on Mamdani. And so I can't bring up the screen, unfortunately. It's on a different tab, and I didn't plan well enough for it. So my apologies. There was, these are the crazy women liberals. Okay. This is something I'm not ever really going to understand. They don't even realize when they're being hypocritical, and they're undermining their own philosophy, right? And I guess maybe it's just that their philosophy changes. It's circumstantial or situational ethics and situational ideas. So here, it's a group of white liberal women screaming at a black ICE agent. They call him a race traitor. How does it feel to be a race traitor? You guys tried to detain your own person. You have the reading level of a fucking 8th grader. Yikes. Okay, so this white liberal lady is going to tell this black ICE officer what he should be doing, how he should identify, how he should deal with members of his own community and his own race. Like, she's dictating to, and this is how the liberals think of black people. I'm not even joking. They are like, we will tell you how you're going to be. We will tell you who you're going to like. We will tell you how you're going to vote. We will tell you how you're going to identify. We will tell you what group you're in and what group you can be in and what group you can't be in. Okay, don't you dare go off the plantation, boy, or we're going to bust you down. You know, like, this is their mentality. All the time, they're patting themselves on the back for being like civil rights activists. And once again, I'll tell you why. It comes back to the same purpose: Democrat power. That's it. They use black people to maintain their power, to gain power, and to hold on to power. And they can't risk having them leave. If an illegal immigrant wants to leave Minnesota, they'd probably arrest him and say, like, nope, you're an illegal immigrant. You're staying here, boy. Where the fuck do you think you're going? You're staying right here. We're not letting you leave. And so they pay them to make them not leave. But if they did want to leave, they would probably be like, oh, whoa. We can't be letting people leave. We need them to gain more power. So it's the same kind of attitude that they have with the black community. They're like, whoa. You're an ICE agent. Don't you know that as a black man, you're not supposed to be an ICE agent? We have decided that you can't do that. You're a traitor to your own race, right? So then they try to guilt, they try to shame, they try to emotionally manipulate. That's because women are weak and weaker than men. They can't use force and they can't use violence. So what they've evolved to do is to use emotional manipulation. That's their version of force and violence, and they're more in touch with how to manipulate people's emotions. And so that's what they go to. That's what they default to when they're trying to force you and trying to control you. It's always emotional manipulation. Oh, you're a race traitor. You must really hate your people. Why do you hate your people so much? How does it feel to be a race traitor? That kind of stuff. And then it just breaks you down inside and makes you question yourself, so then they can point you in the direction they want you to go. So let's
be a race traitor.
See, again, y'all are throwing race into all of this. Nobody's throwing race into it.
You profile people.
He says, why is it the first thing you say is race? Nobody's even talking about race. This isn't anything to do with race. And they're like, oh, yes, it is. We're making it about race because that's about the only thing we know how to do. So if we make it about race, then we can control you. We can manipulate you. We can disregard all of your beliefs or take nothing you say seriously, because now it all just became about race, and because we're hyper emotional, we can use it to manipulate you. I mean, look at this. Look at that. White girl. It's always these white liberal women who are the stupidest people in our country. They don't even realize how racist they're being here. Right? Because they have been so trained to think it's impossible for them to be racists that they can just do whatever they want. They can talk to this black guy however they want, tell him he's a race traitor. They can tell him that, and he's like, what? Why are we even talking about race? This is about illegal immigrants. And they're like, oh, no, we're dragging race into this. We like to drag it into everything else because it's been our best tool to manipulate and to control and to overpower people. And the Democrats love it. And that's why they just dump fuel on racial tensions all the time. And they're always talking about race, and they're always talking about white people and white supremacy and black people and, all this, they're arresting brown people and stupid shit like that, because they've gotten so much mileage out of doing that. And they've been able to control people and coerce them and to shut their mouths up when they disagree with them, that it's the best tool. It's kind of like the last tool they have. And it's like a tool that's getting worn out, and it only works some of the time. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it doesn't really have the same kind of effectiveness that it used to have, but they don't have anything else. And so they're like, I don't know, maybe we can manipulate this guy into doing what we want him to do by saying you're black and you can't arrest brown people. because you're a traitor if you do.
How they look. You profile people for how they look and how they speak.
Without your mask on and without your shitty little Timu get up, your ass would be stopped by ICE.
Yeah, because they just, random black guy walking down the street. ICE, throw him in the back of the semi, stab him in the neck and, knock him out. And then we're going to go throw him in Lake Superior. This is how stupid these people are. They think it's just like totally random. They just like ICE guys are just like driving around. And by the way, a lot of these ICE guys are black and they're Hispanic. So, so these liberals, they don't know what to do with that. They're like, oh, fuck. We thought that they were all white guys. Now we're doing so shit. Now we got a brown guy arresting a brown guy. What are we going to do about that? How can we stop him from doing that? Because we don't really care about people based on the color of their skin. We just use that as a manipulation tactic. So here's what we do: we say, oh, you're a brown man arresting a brown man. What? You're a traitor to your own kind. As if he has to be on that guy, as if he has to support criminals and rapists just because they have the same color of skin. And he just like can't possibly believe in the rule of law and that that's a good thing. And that regardless of the color of your skin, if you do shit like rape children, you should be arrested. Well, you can't think that. You have to, it doesn't matter what they've done. It doesn't matter. You have the same tone of skin. So you have to be on each other's side. See how they want to force everybody into these little boxes? And because when they force you into these little boxes like that, they know that they can manipulate you and control you. And it's what they've been doing with the black community for the last 60 years. They've been keeping them in the box. They've been keeping them on the plantation. They've been saying, no, you can't go out there and you can't explore that. That's not what black people do. Well, blah, blah, blah. And it's all these white liberals who want to do it. They're the ones who are holding their chains now. And it's like, these people can't even handle it, that this black guy is doing his own thing and he's thinking for himself and he believes in rule of law and he wants to arrest people who are breaking the law and stealing and raping and murdering and robbing, which is a good thing to arrest those people. These liberals' minds are so fucked up and they're so twisted and backwards that they don't even think about how retarded it is to leave on the streets people who are rapists and murderers. It doesn't even cross their mind. They just know that these people should be out. It's like, well, but what if they raped somebody? Well, just shut up. They didn't. It's never happened. Brown people don't do bad things. Only white people. Right? This is like the brain rot that these people have. And I think I find it so funny that she's going to dictate to this guy what he's supposed to do, how he's going to be treated. How would this woman know what it's like to be perceived of as a black man? How would she? She's like, I know exactly how you're going to be treated. Well, he knows better than you do how he's going to be treated. Let him make up his own mind. You don't need to dictate to him. You don't have to tell the dumb black man what he's supposed to think. He can think for himself. He can make his own decisions. Just leave the fucking guy alone. It's so irritating that these what am I trying to say? They're on their high horse. They're mightier than thou or whatever. They think that they're special and that they have secret knowledge of, they really know what's moral, and they're going to tell you what you can and can't think because they're so right. At the same time being extremely wrong, which makes it hilarious, makes it comical. It's what makes it funny.
Fucking know it. You guys tried to detain your own person.
Your own
that's
person.
Because you have the reading level of a fucking 8th grader, my dude.
Oh, now bring in the shame and the guilt. Oh, what? He only has the reading level of an 8th grader because what? Because he's black? You think black people are all stupid? Is that what you think? See, and they do. They do think that. They think that they're too stupid to make up their own minds and make up their own decisions, that they need to tell them. And if they don't listen, then they shame them and they guilt them and they say that you're just a dumb black guy. Can't even read. You got the reading level of an 8th grader, right? This is the liberal way. This is the guilt shame complex that especially liberal women use to keep you enchained, to keep you enslaved, to keep you on the plantation, to keep you from going out and finding your own way in the world and being successful. And because maybe if you went out there and you explored things, then maybe you'd become a conservative and you'd become a Republican. And we can't have that. We can't have them thinking for themselves. We can't have them going out and exploring for themselves. What we need to tell them is that if you go out there, it's a dangerous, dangerous, wild world where everybody hates you and is full of white supremacy and they're just going to oppress you and they're just going to destroy your life. So don't go out there. Just stay right here underneath Mama Liberal's wing, and I'll take care of you and I'll give you some cash every so often so that you stay nestled in tight to me. And it's total bullshit. And they can't handle it when it's somebody like this guy, this ICE officer who has obviously made his own decision that he wants to be part of this. And they just can't handle it. They're like, we did not approve, sir. We did not approve of a black man joining ICE. Therefore, how did this happen?
Dude, come on.
I love how calm he is. He's just like hanging out. He's like, what the fuck?
Fucking go anywhere. This idiot isn't gonna learn.
You working for the fucking government? Like, you think that this is gonna save you?
Why does he need saved? See? The language. She, being a white liberal, thinks it's her responsibility to save the black man, to save the black woman, to save the black community. And this guy clearly doesn't need her to do anything. And she dislikes it because you're supposed to rely on me to save you. And that means then I can manipulate you any way I want to. And the reason you need saving is because you're too pathetic to do anything on your own. So you need me. Right? It's just so blatantly obvious how racist these people are. I can't believe they've gotten away for so long with being the ones who call everybody else racists and who never get held accountable for their racist attitudes.
What's going on in this world?
Whether you work for the government.
Hey, do you know that you have to work for ICE? Man who is out there racially profiling other people. That's fucking sick. In fucking Germany that I gotta carry my fucking passport with me? Are you guys gonna make me wear a fucking star like my ancestors? I'm fucking Jewish and Latin American, and I have to deal with this shit. My ancestors were fucking murdered by Nazis, and now you guys are back doing it all over again.
See, there it is. That's what I was talking about earlier. You know, simply all that ICE is doing is simply the same thing Obama did. Was it okay that Obama did it? Or was he also a traitor to his kind? Obama deported. He had ICE. He gave Tom Homan a medal for doing it. Where was this girl then? Where were her ancestors? Were they out protesting? They were not. Because back then, for some reason, all Democrats were in favor of it. And now all of a sudden, after Biden, they hate it. And once again, I'll tell you, it's simply for one reason. It's for Democrats to retain power in Congress. That's it. It's so they keep the immigrants, the illegals in their towns, in their states, so that they can get more apportionment of congressional seats. That's all that this is about. Has absolutely nothing to do with the Holocaust, with Nazis, with blah, 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 blah. Those are all just ridiculous talking points that convince, morons like these people standing around here who don't know what's really going on. And they just think, oh, it's mean. It's mean.
Fuck you! Fuck you! I hope you
That's a crazy comparison.
You're a Nazi!
Read a fucking
book! Gestapo!
Hey.
Anyone else find it ironic that they're calling a black man a Nazi? I mean, I just find that to be very, very funny. Like, the black guy is the Nazi. Yeah, okay, right. That if that doesn't make you sound loony as fuck, then I don't know what does.
What did you just say? I can't hear you. I said, no, say it louder. founded laws on immigration. Like, it's simple. Like, that's it. Like, we can't argue that.
History of immigration.
We do.
Both. But again, I don't think you know all of the history of the immigration.
Because our country doesn't.
It's not about the history. It's about the laws. It's not about the history. It's about
This guy's mind's just like blown. He's like, how are these people so stupid? Like, it's simple. It's just about enforcing what the laws are that we have. That's it. It's not some big conspiracy or something. It's just, we're simply enforcing the laws that we made as a country. Both Democrats and Republicans made these laws. Both have enforced these laws. We're just simply law enforcement who are enforcing the laws. It's pretty simple. And these people have turned it into this grand narrative of oppression and Nazism and stealing people off the streets and racial profiling and all this kind of nonsense. And this guy, being a normal guy with a brain, is like, what? We're just enforcing the law. That's it. Why? What's the matter with you people?
laws. We are here to enforce.
So when you go and detain people, show us everyone the judicial warrant, and then we'll be like, okay, show us an official, legit judicial warrant, and then go ahead.
Absolutely go in if
But
you have the
don't fucking take people out of their houses for no fucking reason and fucking beat them up.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear.
That's why.
But you said something about a warrant, right?
I mean, how are you going to argue with these brain dead liberals? There's nothing you can say, you know, like you can be as reasonable and as rational as the day is long. And there's not going to be any convincing these people one bit that you're just enforcing the law. It's not a big deal. It's the way it's always been done. It's the way it will continue to be done. It's not some big conspiracy. It's not some, if anything, and this is the other disturbing thing that I find is that for all the care and the kindness and compassion that these leftists have, and we need to care about them, and you're disappearing people and you're racial profiling them, never once do they think about the 7-year-old kid that gets raped by these guys. That literally never even crosses their mind that maybe it's compassionate to arrest these people and get them the fuck out of the community. It doesn't cross their mind that it's compassionate that they are preventing someone from being murdered because these people have criminal records, murder, rape, theft, that they're protecting people's property, they're protecting people's lives. That's far more compassionate than what these liberals are screeching about. Oh, just leave them alone. Look, I'm compassionate. No, it's not compassionate to let a rapist back out into society. What the fuck is the matter with you? But because they're so brainwashed and brain dead and can't think and can't reason, that never has even crossed their mind to think about the victims of all these people. Not for 1 second have these people thought about the victims who were brutally attacked by these people, murdered, raped, children, sodomized. The list goes on and on and on. And these people think that that doesn't matter, that we should just let those people walk around our society, let them be free, let them be around kids, let them be out. Who cares if somebody else gets murdered? Who cares if another kid gets raped? We don't care. We just care about the brown people because we're so kind and loving. Total bullshit. Their priorities are completely wrong, completely backwards. If they actually cared about people, they would want criminals arrested. That's what you do to protect people and to care for people. It's a much more compassionate thing to do. But anyway, you'll never convince these lunatics that that's a better thing and that it's compassion. They're just like, I don't know. So anyway, this is because of the brain rot is so fucking deep in these idiots. This is what these liberal white women are saying now. It's fucking
a message from my mom. If I am executed by ICE officers today, it will not be because of anything
You're not
that
going
I
to get
did.
executed, you dipshit.
I want you to know a couple things. First, I don't carry weapons on me. Second, I won't be holding any signs. There will be no indication from me that I'm a violent person or a threat to anyone. I do not.
Then you won't. Nothing will happen to you. What's the matter with these women? What's the matter with this person? I'm only going to stand on the sidewalk peacefully, do nothing, say nothing, not impede anything. And there's a high likelihood I might get executed for it. Who's your parents?
Not plan on following anyone. I do not plan on screaming or shouting or even speaking to anyone.
I don't plan on leaving my house. I don't plan on driving my car. But if by some chance I end up in my chair murdered with a sign that says fuck ICE, then you know something happened. You know, like what kind of delusional world do these people live in? They think that they're just out there gunning people down, shooting people. Oh, look, a person, bang. I don't like people. I'm going to kill them all. You know, this is how ridiculous the narrative has gotten on these people's side because they're operating purely off of an emotions. That's it. It's all emotion based. They're just like, oh, fear, anxiety, bad things. My friends are saying bad things. The people are saying bad things. My echo chamber on social media is saying bad things. Therefore, there's like mom and dad, there's a high likelihood that I probably will be executed today because I'm going to go out of my house. You can't make this shit up.
There to observe and document. This is a historical moment for me in my lifetime, for the state of Minnesota. And no matter what the outcome is, I believe it deserves to be documented. I believe it is my responsibility and my right to document it firsthand as an observer.
You know what? I have a feeling that this lady, she's going to be disappointed if she doesn't get injured or if something bad doesn't happen to her. She's going to be so fucking disappointed because she just like, you can just feel it. She's just like longing for this to be some kind of conflict and confrontation, for her to get thrown on the ground, for her to get kicked, for her to get hit or something. She's just like, oh, then it would prove that I'm really in this thing. Yeah, I think there's a lot of that going on with these people. It's like they want to be martyrs. They want to be victims. It's sort of like a badge that they can wear. And so they don't even hear how stupid that sounds or how ridiculous and out of touch with reality that is. Nobody cares if you document it. Thousands of people are documenting it. It doesn't get anybody killed.
Show what is happening in my city. I believe in the freedom and the foundations of America and the United States Constitution.
I wonder if she documented all the fraud from the Somali community. You suppose she went and documented that? Suppose she's been going to these transportation companies and documenting that? You suppose she's gone to any of these Somali daycares and documented that? No, of course not. And she doesn't even realize, because she's a moron, that all she's doing is she's helping keep corrupt Democrats retain power in her state. Democrats who are stealing her taxpayer money and giving it to Somalis so that they can get siphoned right back into their political campaigns. She doesn't even realize that she's just a shill. She's just a lemming. She's just a foot soldier. She's just a useful idiot for the corrupt Democrats. But she thinks she's being virtuous, and she thinks that she's just like fighting the good fight, not even knowing, because she has absolutely no critical thinking skills, not knowing that she's just being used. They don't care about her. They don't care about the illegals in and of themselves. They only care about what they can do for them. Keep them in power, hopefully gain them more power.
I also believe in change and progress.
Wow.
If I am executed today by ICE officers, it will not be because of anything that I did. I'm saying this because I need you to understand what you're supporting and what you're fighting against, and possibly reconsider.
I should reconsider putting her in an asylum, because that's fucking nuts. That is ridiculous. What a nut job. What a crazy ass nut job. Kristi Noem confirms Mayor Frey and Tim Walz released 490 murderers, rapists, and drug traffickers onto the streets instead of handing them over to ICE agents in jails. This is the people of compassion, everybody. This is the compassionate thing to do, because, as I've said for a while, the Democrats only believe in compassion for criminals. Those are the people they want to show compassion on. They believe that they're being nice, kind, loving people when they let murderers and rapists and drug traffickers onto the streets. And you don't know why they let them onto the streets. It's so ICE couldn't come and take them. That's why, because it made them stay in their town. If they would leave them in the jails and somehow Trump got access to the prisons, they would come in, they would take them, and the Democrats would lose 500 fake voters and 500 scammers. And they would lose a little bit more and a little bit more of their congressional power. So they let them out so that they can go hide amongst the populace, because they don't want them all concentrated in one area where Trump could just come in and ICE could just come in and scoop them up. And that's why they do this. They think the ends justifies the means. And maybe that means some people get murdered. Maybe that means some kids get raped. Maybe that means that some people die from fentanyl overdoses. But so be it. The mission here is so much more noble than any of that, that the ends justify the means. And sometimes you have to you got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet. And they call this compassion. And they call what ICE is doing Nazism, Hitlerian, for wanting to arrest murderers, rapists, and drug traffickers. Is that what the Nazis were doing? Maybe I'm out of touch on this. I guess I didn't think that that's what Nazis were doing. Nazis were arresting murderers, rapists, and drug traffickers. The Gestapo, is that who they were arresting? I mean, if those are the people they were going after, then I guess I mean, what's the big deal? That's a good thing. But here they think that ICE is like the Gestapo, just knocking on a random person's door and saying, "Show me your papers." And it's just like a totally innocent person who's like, "I don't know what's even going on here." And they're like, "I don't care. Let's just arrest him for fun. And then let's go shoot him in the back of the alley." And they think that's what ICE is doing. They're simply trying to get evil, criminal people, illegals, off of the streets and out of our country. Why would we want murderers, rapists, and drug traffickers who are illegals in our country? There's only one reason: so that they can support the Democrats and get them elected and help them retain power. I'm not going to stop saying it. That's all that this is about. That's all this is about.
Well, we have a national targeting center that identifies those who've committed crimes. So they've done something in this country or in their home country that has been criminal charges against them, or they've been convicted. Many times these individuals are in jails or prisons in some of our states already that we just want those local law enforcement officers to turn over to us. For example, one of the things we've asked Governor Walz for and Mayor Frey is to give us just the criminals you have in jail. They've released 490 murderers and rapists and drug traffickers onto their streets rather than just give them to us. And that's what I don't understand.
You know, some of them, though, have multiple names.
Yes.
That's, I mean, it was a big problem. If you come in illegally, you don't necessarily have a social security card, you don't have a passport, there's no database back in your home country because it's a country we're not friendly with.
Yeah, or they've lied on their paperwork to come in, and then they've overstayed and not shown up for their immigration court hearings. They've been notified, and then they've run into DUIs, other incidences. So what we're doing is targeting those who have committed criminal acts. But if we show up and we're going after a TDA member in an apartment, and they're in an apartment with 12 other people, we're going to ask those other people who they are, what their identity is, just like we would any other law enforcement operation. I think that's what people don't know, is that we're doing the same thing that law enforcement has done for years under this administration, the Biden administration, all of them. We haven't changed what we do in these types of situations. We ask everyone there who they are and why they're affiliated and surrounded by these criminals.
Yeah, so 70% of the people that they detain are have a criminal record. The 30% that do not are people who get caught up in these sweeps, who are with the illegals when they get arrested. So they take them in and they make sure that they also are not illegals, and then they release them. There's nothing bad going on here. As much as the Democrats want you to think that there's something just horrifying and terrible and brutal and Nazi and Gestapo, it isn't any of those things. Much to their sadness, it breaks their little hearts that they're not being more brutal. They wish that there was more murders by ICE. They wish that there was, more beatings and more brutality so that they could catch something on camera, damn it. But they're just actually doing their job normal like they always have been. And they don't like that. They're looking for something that they can blast all over the internet and all over the news to discredit ICE so they can get them to leave their towns so that they can keep their precious their political power. And it's not working. It's not working. It's not going to work. And, they're, shit, what was I going to say? I don't know. Who cares? Macron wore sunglasses for some weird reason while he was speaking at the WEF. But, what are you going to do? I think that he had like a black eye or something from what I saw on some other things. He had like his wife beat him up or something. I don't know what happened, but he had a black eye, so he wore sunglasses to block it. But it looks really funny, and Trump even brought it up. He's like, for some reason, this guy's wearing sunglasses. Why the hell are you wearing sunglasses? Okay. Well, I think that's enough Looney Tunes for the day. That's enough of talking about the liberals. Trump killed it at the World Economic Forum. He's really sticking it to the globalists. He's putting them in their place, telling them how things are going to be. They did end up, coming to the negotiating table on the Greenland thing. And that was a big part of what he wanted to do because he thinks it's in the national security interest of the United States. And I don't know why Europe acts like they give a shit about Greenland. They don't give a shit about Greenland. Nobody gives a shit about Greenland. Somebody commented in my comments that he said Iceland. He's so stupid he doesn't know the difference between Greenland and Iceland. And he said Iceland like 15 times or something. I don't know. And maybe he did. Who cares? It doesn't matter. We know who's talking about Greenland. And Greenland is full of ice, so it does look a lot like that. But, the idea that the Europeans, I find it funny. What we should do is we should just move a bunch of Americans into Greenland, have them lobby the government for benefits, for housing, for welfare, for medical aid, for food assistance, and all these kinds of things, and then just have them vote as a bloc to leave Denmark and become an American colony. We should just do that. What, is there something wrong with doing that? Is that wrong to just like invade? Do the borders of Greenland matter now? Do borders matter when it comes to Greenland, but it doesn't matter when there's illegal aliens flooding the United States or flooding Europe? Somehow those borders don't matter, but Greenland's borders are super, super important because Greenland just is so important of a place that like super important. We've got to protect Greenland and we've got to protect Greenland's borders. England's borders, UK's borders, fuck it. France's borders, those are evil borders to protect. And it's evil to protect the United States borders. And it would be evil for a bunch of Americans to just invade Greenland, to demand a bunch of money from the government to pay for their lives, and then to vote to leave Denmark and to join the United States. That would be evil, but it's not bad. You see the hypocrisy, the double standards. As I've said before, if liberals didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. And but somehow the borders of Greenland really matter. The borders of the United States do not matter. And this is all the twisted thinking that the globalists have that go back to World War II that I was talking about before, that the idea is to have open borders so that people cannot, so you don't have homogenous groups of white people, essentially, because the fear is that because they don't have any problem with China not having open borders or Japan not having open borders, and it's just like they're fine. You know, it's just a Western thing where our borders have to be open because you get too much of a concentration of whiteness and you get Hitler. I think that's what their fear. That's really ultimately at the bottom of all this fear. So you have to have open borders so you can have foreigners come in so that you're all kind of bumping into one another and you're friends with one another, so that you don't want to just assemble based on your identity group, but you have now friends that are from different groups and different sexualities and all this kind of stuff. So you kind of see this kumbaya. We're all in this together. The world is a rainbow diverse place and we can all get along. Okay. That doesn't apply to Greenland, though, apparently. That's don't you dare go into Greenland. Leave it alone. But that's the globalist agenda. And it's breaking down, and Trump is rewriting the rules. And I don't think a lot of people understand. I look at a lot of stats about the youth and young men especially, and they are extremely conservative, way more conservative than Trump is. They're not even happy with the stuff that Trump has been doing. They think he's too weak. He's too pathetic. He should have accomplished more by now. He should be beating more people over the head with the stick. Like they are a lot more. They want to be a lot more aggressive with this stuff. And the more that you fight against it, the more that we see these ridiculous leftist women on the streets guilting and shaming and acting like they know what's virtuous and what. The more radical these kids get, right? They don't live in the globalist playground anymore. They're post-globalist, okay? They're post-globalist. It looks like what they care about is nationalism, but that's not exactly what it is. They want to deconstruct the global order, and they want to care about the people that they care about and take care of the people that they care about. They don't want to take care of people in Nigeria. They don't want to take care of people in, Malaysia, when their own people are suffering, can't get jobs, they can't get married, they can't buy a house, they can't have kids, they can't have the American dream because the American dream's been sold out to the globalists and it's been given to the whole globe to share in, which necessarily has put them at a disadvantage. And not only that, but then there's also been laws and policies put into effect to deliberately disadvantage them in things like higher education, elite jobs, with things like DEI. And it's not just white kids, it's kids, it's a whole bunch of different kids. Gen Z is the most diverse demographic that has ever existed. Okay. So this whole idea that diversity is supposed to stop all of that actually is wrong. The diversity of that generation has made it increase. It's increased the in-group thinking. It's increased the amount of disenchantment, disenfranchisement. It's increased all those things. And you know, we sort of were naive and thought that, oh, well, as long as you can just get a whole bunch of different people in the same area, then they'll all just get along. But it increases danger. It decreases safety. It decreases trust in your community and in your society. So there's a lot of negatives about it. And the Gen Zs are sick of it. And they don't see it as being this huge global war prevention tool. All they see it as a tool to oppress them. A tool to oppress them with. So until they were doing that to Asian students. I mean, they're the ones who won the legal case against Harvard. Yeah, Asians, I mean, they get swept up into all this. They've been definitely screwed over too. And it's this, the DEI stuff has basically been a tool used to punish people who were successful or who had the potential to be successful. They didn't like that because they didn't like who the people were who were going to be successful. And the Asians got caught up in all that anti-whiteness. And they because if it's just, we need the diversity in leadership, we need a diversity in law enforcement, we need a diversity in politics, we need diversity in everything. All right. Because somehow that's going to make everything better. The problem with DEI is that they didn't vet people based on merit and DEI. They simply use DEI and they're just like, I don't know, this person's not qualified, but we'll put them in there anyway because we just need diversity. Like it was just all out sold out diversity. And it wasn't like, well, we have two candidates, one of them's diverse, one of them's a Black lady, but has just as much merit as this other person, so we'll give it to her. They didn't even look that far into it. And that's why people complain about it, because it's just like, well, we don't miss, she's Black, so we'll give it to her. That's it. Oftentimes, they were even had less merit, and they were still given the positions. And that's what makes people mad, because we still inherently, as Americans, believe in a meritocracy. That's what's most effective. That's what's most efficient. That's what makes people the happiest. But you got the leaders who are trying to cram down artificial diversity without merit. That's what made people upset. That's what made it oppression. That's what made it disenfranchisement. So, all right. Okay, guys, I appreciate you joining me. This has been a lot of fun. Please don't forget, comment on the video, like, subscribe so that you can get all the new videos I post so that we can interact. So you can check me out on X at J. Allen Speaks on X. We can interact there. You can DM me, email me, whatever. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining me. I'm hoping to be back on maybe tomorrow, maybe over the weekend. So just subscribe so that you get notified when I go live. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.